I just want to congratulate you because your examples were very appropriate and very useful for us. And what I want to suggest to you is, as you work with trying to make your public spaces better spaces, everybody can learn from what you are doing. And so it becomes not just what you do in your city, it becomes something that everybody in the project will follow and say, wow, so this is working. How can this work? And I just quickly, before I know our time's running out, we've got about 15 to 20 minutes left. I just quickly, before we start getting to the end of our session, I just want to allow people to comment quickly on what they heard in the presentations from everybody, starting from Alicia's presentation to Rita's presentation to every town or city's presentation. If there's any comments, you can just kind of, you can raise your hand or you can just switch your mic on and talk. That's not a problem. If there's any observation you want to make, question you want to ask, I see in the chat we've done some excellent contributions in the chat. Thank you very much. I'd let you read the chat on your own because it can take a bit of time for us to go through everything on the chat. So maybe I'm going to do, as I wait for anybody to comment, I'm just going to quickly make a comment from my side on what Alicia presented. So Alicia, in her presentation, she spoke about the handbook. And somebody asked, I think it was Walters that asked, is the handbook available? And the link was provided in the link. Please click on that link. The work that a party project has done, I have to admit I was a little involved with that as well, but it's a brilliant, brilliant handbook that they've put together. I would reckon it to be now one of the best resources for placemaking in Europe. So you're very welcome to use that handbook. And it was written with an audience in mind. It was written with young people in mind. So if you start, and I'm going to give you the big secret magic for doing placemaking right at the end. So I'll say it now, it's supposed to go at the end, is if you want to do placemaking, you just bring people together and you start a group, and that group starts working on a place. And this handbook is the kind of handbook that you can give that you can give people to read, to research, especially it's written for young people. Now we all know to ask young people just to read something, it's not really going to work. So it's written in such a way that young people can actually stay with it. And there's lots of interesting tools. Somebody asked the question about communication and said, well, you know, talk a bit about how communication works. You could hear quite a few presentations that said, it's all about communication. It's about how you communicate all the time. In Rita's presentation, some of the communication was using symbolism, which was brilliant. For instance, symbolism that you use on the public space to lead people to a public space. All of that communication and ideas that people have. There's a lot in the handbook about communication. And I just want to comment here because I saw one of the research projects that happened in the party project was interviewing young people to talk about the public space in the public space. So they had people, it was Koper, was it Koper, Alicia? In
Koper and in Trieste, both the places.
In Trieste and Koper. So part of the project was to literally have a phone and take videos as you speak to young people and you ask them certain questions about the place. And then starting to put that information together as data and say, but this is how young people feel about the place and their ideas. And the interesting thing, because they put together this as research, it was brilliant to see the honest answers young people give. And what the Party project really does, it says young people can be the placemakers. So our biggest problem in Europe is we want to do things for people. If we can just stop doing that, if we can step back, and again, now I'd like to speak about the Plienhout project. In the Plienhout project, the whole approach is to work with people. It is to understand where people are, to understand their neighborhood, and then to start testing and working with them and say, well, why don't we try this? How do we support you to do this? that working with people, especially with if we go back to Alicia's project, working with young people, it's possible. So placemaking is actually empowering people to do things themselves. That's what placemaking really is. Right. And then I saw all your presentations for each town. And I'm already excited. I can already see in this project, there's so much you can do and learn and try things. Ileana, you want to come in quickly? Ileana?
Yeah, I was just typing in the chat box again the resources about the toolbox developed through the party project, and I just would like to add that this project funded by Erasmus Plus is a kind of follow-up of the Playful Paradigm 1, because we reflected a lot with many partners about opportunities of placemaking offered by play. And the play approach is a really strong resources for involving different ages. But the innovation is also to provide a clear lens on the gender equality aspect, trying also to transform the word of gender in generation, bringing with us the motto of UN Women, because we really believe that public spaces are places where we can test. We said many times today that we need to test, we need to have pilot projects to be replicated, etc. And the public spaces are the places for all, where testing and where concretely experimenting the generation equality. But for doing that, we need to give the freedom to girls and boys to experiment by themselves what they want and what they wish, and to provide insights and to be active. And I just would like to say that I found really interesting what 𝗣𝗯𝗰𝗴 and also the other cities said, but the last sentence dealing with the authorities, the role of the local authorities, because of course, if we want that the young people take the action and to be active in promoting by themselves projects, the local authorities and the Playful Paradigm is composed just by cities have to give the permission to do. And this is a really great point to start to think about how to let the people do by themselves.
Excellent. And I'm going to take us quickly for the last 10 minutes through what I would call my hints. And this is all it comes a lot from the Project for Public Spaces ideas, but it's from specifically also from other EU projects and specifically URBACT projects that we've been involved with. So I'm going to share my screen again, and it is on screen one. Yeah. Okay. You can all see the screen, no problem. So this is what we call the hints and examples, or what I call the hints and examples. And it's going to start with just little pictures and then a few lines. So the first thing you need to know is placemaking doesn't work where you go on your own trying to do something. You can never do it on your own. So placemaking by its very nature is a collective process. Therefore, the first thing you do is bring people together concerning a place. And if you just understand that it's, you know, even if you are highly motivated and you've got the greatest ideas, you can't do it on your own. You shouldn't even try to do it on your own. Then the next one, I think, is my favorite one. And that is, by the way, if you look at that picture, it's taken in a city called Hilden. And Hilden is in the Netherlands, a small city in the Netherlands, and they're very active on placemaking. There's quite a few pictures of them in here. And one of the things they do is they allow the kids to, this is older kids, in the summertime, they can do a camping in the city, in one of the parks or the public spaces in the city, and they make out of cardboard or recycled old packaging. They make their own tents, and then they paint their tents and so on. But obviously, this is an idea they got from somebody else. And the whole point I'm trying to make here is try your neighbor's ideas, steal ideas from other people. Don't everything doesn't have to be totally original. Find out from other cities what they're doing. Search on the internet, talk to people. You'll find ideas from others and try them in your own place. The next one that's quite important is, and we've spoken about it again, communities lead, designers enable. And the principle here is, if you've got in placemaking, if you got it the right way around, it really works very well. Then the designers really give you a lot of value. But if the designers have in their own minds, this is what a place should be like, and they've already designed the place and then try to kind of consult whatever they do afterwards, that actually is a higher risk situation. So we really advocate in placemaking that designers should listen to communities, and communities should lead when it comes to making places better places. The example I give you there, you might know if you've been in New York in Central Park. This is a sculpture of Alice in Wonderland, but it's the most famous for any kid in New York would tell you about this place, because that's where they go to play. So when you've got something which created added value, is the word we use in business, added value to a space, which is so used, like something like this, that's great. So for instance, there's a whole understanding now that new public sculptures should be playful. It should be something that people can use, and communities can lead on it. It should be a playful, for instance. Another thing that's really important is when you are making public spaces, form should follow function. So in this case, this is again in Hilden. There was a need to restore or to kind of support this old tree in a public space. So, but there was also a need for seating, and there was a need to create a bit of a playful element to it. So you can see all the design elements followed a function that was there. And usually to understand the function, you have to have this engagement with people. You have to understand how people use a space to understand what the functions would be. You can see some of these tips is really for the designers themselves to please be careful when you trade in the public spaces. I've also got a picture like the Portuguese picture. This is also in Hilden, and basically what happens here is they have what they call Splash Bomb, and Splash Bomb is an event they have. They stole this idea from San Diego. And that is, they just, on a summer's day, put buckets of water in the public space and ask everybody to bring their water guns and their water pistols, and off they go. So the only thing you have to do there is give permission, put the water buckets down, and then make sure that people understand that if they play, they have to do it safely. And you facilitate, and you do this kind of thing just by making sure there's observation so that nothing gets out of hand. But for the rest, you let people play themselves, and those are the kind of things you can do to make people play. But the most important thing here is we call it go lighter, quicker, and cheaper. And lighter meaning it's not something that's heavy. In the presentation from 𝗣𝗯𝗰𝐴, you were speaking about something that's temporary, to do some temporary things, to do something that is just for the afternoon. Quicker and cheaper means you try as quickly as possible. It's part of the whole testing idea. And cheaper is you really don't have to spend money. I have to tell people, when people say to me, oh, you can't do placemaking because you don't have the funds. Actually, placemaking is not about funds. It's about people's time and people's creativity, and how you can use existing resources or reuse materials. But you can go bigger as well. So this is again in New York. And basically, this was a mural painted on an area in New York, which was a disused parking area. And they wanted to, you can see it's one of those triangle areas, which what to do with it. And another idea in placemaking is to triangulate. And this comes very much out of Project for Public Spaces. So you look at a space like that, and they actually, first of all, created an artwork on the space. So that cues for people already, well, this space is going to be different from just the use of cars for parking. And you'll see they placed certain things there, like there's certain bins and some pots that they've placed there. But the most important thing is sometimes there's activity in here, and look at all the different activities that happen there. People are sitting, there's some food trucks there. There's, you can see there's other uses in there. And we call that triangulation, meaning that you do one or you do more than one use close to each other. We always use the example of the ice cream cart. If you've got a park and you want to have an activity there where you want, say, for instance, mothers and their young children to come to the activity, you might say, well, let's make sure that there's an ice cream cart that also comes there. Or let's make sure that there's also a place where there's seating where they can sit. Or there's, in other words, you position quite a few things close to each other. And that's what the word triangulate is actually that it's more than one element that you bring together. That's what triangulate means. The word power of 10 is now the PPS in their words. And PPS says, if you've got 10 things that are quite close in conjunction working with each other, you will have a great place. This is how they would argue. And those 10 things would do everything from, oh, there's some flower pots that are well arranged. There's some seating that's well arranged. There's some activity taking place. There's some food that you can eat. There's maybe shade that people can sit under. There's areas where people can mix and other areas where people can contemplate. So that's what we mean by 10 things that are working together in a place. That's quite important. There's a architect from Copenhagen that people might have heard of, 𝗍𝗯𝐿. So 𝗍𝗯𝐿 created a impression and had a huge influence on Scandinavian design, but specifically on public spaces in places like Copenhagen and Stockholm and so on. And it was to say, well, what actually is important is what happens at eye level rather than all kinds of other features that can get us all razzle-dazzle and excited. What you can do at eye level is really important. So think about eye level and what people see at eye level. Now, here's an important one. Not just older people, young people as well. So sometimes you should design and think about placemaking at the level of young children. Back to Hilden. Hilden has a weekend where everything is changed to the eye level of children at the age of about 5 to 6 years old. So all the tables and the chairs in the squares are small tables and chairs. And I mean, that sounds like a strange thing. Why would you do this? It is just to also recognize that it depends on which level you are operating it with people. You know, things like that. It's quite important. This is also a picture from Hilden. Basically what they do, this is a new development next to their station. And they made sure that as part of the development, the public space there is a space which people can use the way they want to use it. And they would have, instead of organizing big festivals, what they're organizing is lots of little events, small, we say in praise of small and bountiful. So some of those little events that we're talking about could be a movie in the summertime, every Friday evening or whatever the case might be. And these are open air events that they can use. And you can see people bring their tables and chairs and they just sit down and they enjoy themselves. Now, this is not rocket science, but the fact is it's the approach and it's the focus you have that's really important. This picture is my picture from Ireland. And I live in Ireland, I live in Dublin. So in Ireland, we have what's called the Tidy Towns movement. And the tidy towns are literally local volunteers in every town, every village, who over weekends and sometimes even in the week as well, they get together and they just clean up the place. And they do all kinds of things to make the place just small thing. And it's just ordinary people, and it's just their way. It's become a culture, and that's what we call stewardship. When we get a situation where people look after the public space, and it's just what they do, and we need to cherish that. What I mean with that is we need to find people that are prepared to do that, people that are prepared to go into a park and just clean up the park. Not say, oh, this is a municipality, we'll wait 2 weeks for the municipality to arrive to clean up the park. Those are the kind of things that nurture a placemaking process. And it's a process. And what I mean by that is placemaking is not an event. It's not an activity. It's not a project. Oh, we redesigned something, we finished it, and we all walked away. It's an ongoing process. You are never finished. You have to continue doing it all the time. So I'm going to stop here. I'm not going to go through this again. Just as a summary of placemaking hints, what I told you there, you can never do it alone. Try your neighbor's ideas. Form follows function. In praise of small and bountiful. Communities lead, designers enable. Go lighter, cheaper, and quicker. Lighter, quicker, and cheaper. Create impact at eye level, triangulate and use the power of 10, cherish the stewards of our public spaces, and you are never finished. And I'm finished now, so I'm going to stop sharing. So there's the hints. We're 3 minutes over our time. So I'm going to give back to Ileana. We'll give you these presentations. I think you'll put it on your base camp or something.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you very much, Wessel. Thank you very much all.